so much, Ariel. A very timely program, and thank you for hosting it, Arj. It's very timely that the headlines this past week or so from the Caucasus have been very much about the extradition and pardon, praise, promotion of Lieutenant Safarov, who was, as you may know, convicted in Hungary for killing an Armenian soldier in his sleep. And the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, has really made him into a hero. That's a specific case. If you were to generalize that, will that have any impact on the credibility of President Aliyev's claims to govern the Armenians of Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh?
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Yeah, Ariel. My name is Aram, Hamparian, and I work with the Armenian National Committee right here, a couple blocks away. I come to this program, I think, almost every year waiting for insights, a special comments. It's about the Caucasus, I think, but why didn't we have anyone from Armenia during these panels? Is there,
we had Armenians.
This year?
We had Armenians.
The Caucasus is three states.
Who would like to take this question?
I think I continue on the same line as my previous answer. I think you find in both countries increasingly a deepening of the mutual ethnic hatred that I find very worrisome. The Safarov case, I think, was quite troubling. Similarly was the case with the convicted Asala terrorist, Karabakh 10 years ago, who was welcomed as a hero by the Armenian Prime Minister, who had bombed the Orly airport, killing 8 people. I mean, these are things that unfortunately are happening. There are forces in both governments that have a tendency to condone and sometimes even glorify this type of violence. I think they're equally bad. The problem, more broadly, I would say, is that the two governments are manifestly unable to resolve the conflict. And unfortunately, the foreign community, international community that has an obligation through the OSCE and other ways to actually invest time, resources, and energy into helping these governments to resolve the conflicts are manifestly not doing so. We have a Minsk process that is only a process in name, that is a process for the sake of the process, and we find that at the end of the day, foreign governments make they make statements of concern when things happen, like, for instance, the pardon of Safarov, or when there is a shootout in the region. But there is, at least as far as I can see, no serious ambition to invest any serious resources into actually trying to resolve the conflict in any way. And I don't see any other future but the renewal of violence at some point in the future in this conflict, which will bring us to perhaps speak in 10, 20, or 30 years continuously about this conflict, just the same way as people are speaking about the Kashmir conflict with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's sound. I'm not an optimist by nature, but I think this is where we're at. And one of the big problems is the dereliction of duty, if you will, or responsibility by the government of the U.S., Russia, and France, who are tasked with the resolution.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Svante, that it's nice to have adults when there are adults, but there's a saying in Russia: "Спасение утопающих, дело рук самих утопающих." The business of saving those who drown is by those themselves who drown. And if the Armenian and the Azerbaijani sides prefer to escalate, by all means, a tragic and probably not aesthetically pleasing situation with this pardon, and instead decide not to focus on a serious search for peace, then you and I and our Azeri friends and Georgian friends will keep sitting here and discussing it, ad nauseum. Instead, the responsible parties should have, a long time ago, closed the doors, locked themselves, and come to a solution that both sides can live with. That applies to Pakistan, Kashmir, Israeli-Arab conflict, Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, and many others. And sooner or later, it will probably end, hopefully sooner rather than later. Mahmoud.
Just a very brief comment. Going back to Manash's earlier question about civil society development in the countries and leadership in that side. but we have in general lack of strategic leadership and lack of vision for resolution of issues like that. Problem of the region. Unfortunately, I have to disagree with our respected moderator that it will be very hard to resolve this issue internally. There has to be strategic vision, engagement, and leadership to somehow resolve this issue. Otherwise, region will move to the very, very negative and wrong direction.
I don't want to engage in a debate here, but the evidence is that even at a peak of its power, at the very end of the Cold War, and right after the end of the Cold War, the United States was not capable, even when Colin Powell invited the two presidents to Florida, was not capable of resolving the conflict. By itself, Russia clearly has its own agenda in South Caucasus. France is France. And now, Europe as a whole is in economic decline, if not to say the political decline, and I don't expect any bright light to come from Brussels, unless Swante disagrees with me. Let's take another question instead of having us pontificating.